What if I told you the most devastating response isn't confrontation but quiet withdrawal? That the sharpest weapon in your arsenal is not rage, not revenge, but restraint. When you stop arguing, when you stop explaining yourself, you don't become weaker, you become untouchable. People thrive on chaos. They expect it when things fall apart. They want shouting matches, desperate texts, dramatic goodbyes. Because that gives them power. It lets them play the victim while watching you spiral. But when you exit silently, you cut off their air supply. You create a vacuum, one they can't fill, one that echoes louder than any scream. Silence isn't the absence of sound, it's the presence of control. They don't fear your anger, they've survived your pain, but your indifference, that's what haunts them. That's what they can't manipulate, because when you detach without warning, when you just stop showing up emotionally or physically, they're left staring into a mirror they never asked for. And in that reflection they see every flaw they tried to project onto you, every guilt, every lie, every mask they wore to keep control. You didn't need to expose them, you just needed to leave. And now, their own mind is doing the work for you. They'll call it cold, they'll call it cruel, but it's neither. It's clean, it's calculated, it's clarity. The most strategic exit doesn't come with closure, it comes with silence. You walk away without explaining yourself, without proving anything. You don't fight for a seat at a broken table. You build your own. And that's what rattles them most. Not that you left, but that you never looked back. That's where guilt begins to rot them from the inside. They'll tell themselves they're fine, they'll pretend they don't care, but silence becomes a mirror, and mirrors never lie. If you're ready to reclaim your power, comment this below. My silence is their sentence. Number 1. Detach first, and watch control flip. Detach before they expect it, and you seize the upper hand. That's the shift they never see coming. While they're still busy calculating how to provoke you, how to trigger emotion, how to pull you back in, you're already gone. Not physically, mentally, emotionally, silently. And that's where the panic begins, because control was never about force, it was about access. Once you remove access, the illusion crumbles. They're left with questions, uncertainty, silence, and nothing to feed off. They'll try to bait you, maybe kindness, maybe cruelty, maybe both in the same breath. But when your mind is no longer in the game, none of it lands. Your detachment becomes their paranoia. Your calm becomes their chaos. That's how control flips. You didn't overpower them, you simply slipped away. Quietly, strategically, without needing to explain or warn. It was never about who yells louder, it was about who walks away cleaner. If you've reached that point, comment below. My distance rewrites the story. Number 2, they crave closure to regain power. Closure is a trick, a last attempt to keep the door half open. When they say they just want to talk, what they really want is one more shot at control. Not to heal, not to understand, but to twist your words, shift the blame, and walk away feeling like they won. It's not about peace, it's about position. Because if they can get you emotional one last time, if they can make you explain, cry, or justify, they win. They get the final word, they regain the frame. But when you deny them that final scene, when you walk away without the script they expected, you leave them suspended in their own mind. And that's where guilt festers. In the silence, in the unknown, in the unanswered questions that eat away at their pride. They don't get to rewrite history. They don't get to end the chapter on their terms. You've already closed the book, and that unfinished ending, that's what will haunt them. They'll tell people you were cold, that you ghosted, that you couldn't handle the truth. Let them talk. That noise is just their defense against the guilt growing louder in the quiet. Your silence forces them to face themselves, and most people can't. They're not looking for peace, they're looking for a loophole. Don't give it to them. Stay silent, stay gone. Let them deal with the weight they tried to place on your shoulders. Let their guilt echo in the space where your voice used to be. If you understand now why silence is sacred, drop it in the comments. I owe no one closure. Number 3. Guilt festers in the space you leave. Guilt doesn't bloom in confrontation, it festers in silence. It feeds on absence. It multiplies in the space you used to fill, when you're no longer around to absorb their blame, no longer available to carry their emotional mess. See, when you detach quietly, they don't just lose your presence, they lose the distraction you provided from their own reflection. Because while they were projecting, accusing, controlling, you were the screen. But now that you're gone, they have nothing left to throw it at but themselves. That's when guilt begins to rot the edges of their thoughts. At first they might feel relief. They think they're free, that they've won. But over time, something starts gnawing at them. Late at night, in moments of stillness, when nobody's around to validate their version of the story. That's when it hits, the weight of what they did, what they didn't do, what they said or never said, and worse, the way you didn't react, the way you didn't chase. That silence becomes a verdict they can't appeal. And unlike arguments or revenge, silence doesn't fade, it lingers. They'll start remembering small things you said, the way you used to show up, the little moments they dismissed. They'll try to convince themselves that you didn't matter. But if that were true, your absence wouldn't be so loud. That's the trap. They don't realize what you were until you stop explaining it, until your energy disappears, and suddenly they're forced to face the version of themselves you were protecting them from. You didn't destroy them, you gave them space, and they filled it with their own truth. That's what guilt is, the shadow of clarity, and once it starts growing, it doesn't stop. Let it spread, let it sink in. Your silence planted the seed. Their mind will do the rest. If you're done being their shield, speak it into the comments now. Let them sit in what they created. Number 4. Your calm is the death of their ego. Nothing confuses a manipulator more than a calm target. Your silence, your stillness, it dismantles their entire strategy. They expect fire, chaos, retaliation, because that gives them a role to play, that gives them something to fight. But when you remain centered, when your emotions are unreadable, you take away their power to control the narrative. You're no longer their puppet. You've become their mirror. And in that mirror, they begin to see everything they tried to avoid about themselves. Your calm isn't weakness. It's a weapon. It makes them guess, question, spiral. It exposes their dependence on your reaction. And when you don't give them what they're used to, when you don't get defensive, angry, or broken, they begin to fracture. You're not feeding their ego anymore, you're starving it. Quietly, consistently, completely, their sense of control isn't threatened by your aggression, it's annihilated by your peace. And the best part? They'll never admit it. They'll act unbothered, post pictures, throw subtle shots, but all of it is noise to distract from the silence you left behind. Because deep down they know, once you learn to control your own mind, they lost access to it forever. That's the ultimate detachment. Not walking away physically, but removing your emotional currency from their economy. Now let me ask you something. If one idea can shift your entire mindset, imagine what 30 days could do. Shall I take this deeper? If you're ready for a full 30 days of detachment, built exactly like this, comment below. I'm ready to rewire. I'll only create it if the real ones ask for it. Number 5. Emotions are currency. Stop paying. Every time you overreact, argue, beg, or explain, you're spending emotional currency. And like any currency, if you keep handing it out for free, people stop valuing it. They get used to your energy being accessible, predictable, easy to manipulate. That's how you become emotionally bankrupt. Not all at once, but slowly. Transaction by transaction. One overreaction here, one explanation there, and before you realize it, you've funded someone else's ego at the cost of your own peace. But here's the shift. The moment you stop paying, everything changes. You stop investing in drama that doesn't serve you. You stop financing their need for control with your need for validation. And that silence you give them, that absence of emotion, it disrupts the entire economy they built on your reactions. You owe no one your peace. You don't have to explain why you left, why you changed, or why you no longer respond the way you used to. When you become emotionally unavailable to chaos, chaos loses interest, and what's left behind is clarity. Clarity about who you are, what you stand for, and what you will no longer tolerate. Your emotions are not public property. They're not for display, negotiation, or trade. They're tools. And power comes from knowing when to use them and when to lock them away. Because silence isn't just the absence of noise. It's the decision to stop spending your attention where it brings no return. If they wanted your fire, starve them with ice. If they wanted to push your buttons, let them realize the buttons are gone. That's detachment, not coldness, but control. When you become emotionally minimal, you become psychologically dominant, and that's when they begin to feel the absence of the attention they once took for granted. Number 6. Detachment isn't weakness, it's mastery. They'll call you cold the moment you stop setting yourself on fire to keep them warm. They'll say you've changed, become distant, indifferent, even heartless. But understand something. People don't fear your silence because it's emotionless. They fear it because it means you're no longer under their spell. Detachment doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you've finally learned how to feel without letting it destroy you. That's not weakness, that's mastery. True detachment is a skill, one that takes years of being drained, ignored, taken for granted, until you finally say, enough. Not with anger, not with rage, but with stillness. You stop explaining, you stop justifying, you stop hoping they'll understand, and you simply start choosing yourself, quietly, consistently, without warning. And here's what most people never expect. You don't announce the shift. You don't broadcast your growth. You just move differently. Less reaction, more observation, less presence, more protection. You're still kind, but not available. Still present, but not reachable. Still aware, but not attached. And that shift, that confuses them. It shakes them. Because the version of you they had access to is gone, and now they're dealing with someone they can't predict, can't push, can't guilt. They'll try to poke holes in your silence, accuse you of being too guarded, too distant, but all that really means is they no longer benefit from your vulnerability, because when you are constantly explaining yourself, constantly giving chances, constantly making excuses for their behavior, you were easy to reach, easy to break, easy to use. But now, your detachment makes you unreadable, and unreadable means unplayable. You don't need to tell people you've changed. Let them feel it. Let them feel the absence of the old you, the version that tolerated disrespect, that stayed quiet to keep the peace, that explained themselves to people committed to misunderstanding you. That you is gone, and what replaced it is someone who's learned that peace isn't something you beg for. It's something you protect with silence. Detachment is not coldness. It's clarity. When you detach, you're not giving up on people. You're giving up on patterns. Patterns that left you mentally exhausted. patterns that kept you in cycles, patterns that disguised emotional slavery as connection. You're not hard to love, you're just done loving recklessly. And now your love comes with terms, with filters, with boundaries. And what happens when you master detachment? You stop chasing. You stop seeking closure. You stop waiting for apologies that'll never come. You walk away, not because you're bitter, but because you're wise enough to know that your energy is sacred. Not everyone deserves access. Not everyone should get a second round. And most importantly, not everyone is worth hearing your side of the story. You learn to be okay being misunderstood, because clarity doesn't require confirmation. You learn to be okay not proving your worth, because presence is your proof. You learn to be okay being alone, because peace, when earned, is better than company that confuses your worth. And when they come back, and they will, you don't respond with rage, you respond with distance, because the game is over, and once you've mastered detachment, nothing they say pulls you back. You don't hate them, you just don't need them. And that realization is what finally breaks them. Now listen carefully. If this isn't just a message, but a mirror for where you're headed, then it's time to speak up. I've been holding back something bigger, something colder, a full 30-day system designed to wire this discipline into your mindset, one day at a time. Not just theory, but action, not just quotes, but rewiring. But I'll only drop it if the real ones demand it. If you want that system, if you want 30 days of pure emotional mastery, silence, control, and detachment, comment this right now. We want 30 days series. Say it like a statement, like a signal, and if enough of you speak up, I'll release the entire blueprint. Because the time for chasing is over. The time for clarity has just begun. Number 7, disappear without a trace. Let them obsess. The ones who hurt you never expect to be ignored. They expect resistance. They expect emotion. They expect you to explode, because that validates their control. But when you don't react, when you don't explain, when you simply disappear without a trace, they unravel. Not because you vanished, but because they can't understand how you did it so cleanly, so quietly, so finely. They wanted closure because they needed a chance to frame the ending. They needed one more chance to flip the story, rewrite the past, make themselves the victim. But you denied them the final scene, and in that blank space, their mind plays the loop over and over, looking for answers they'll never get. You left the stage and took the script with you, and now they're stuck performing in an empty theater with no one to manipulate. Disappearing isn't about ghosting, it's about graduating. There comes a point where explaining yourself again becomes a form of begging. And you're done begging, you're done proving, you're done teaching people how to treat you. You've withdrawn access. And when you do that without noise, it drives them insane. Because people are addicted to attention, but silence? Silence makes them hear themselves. And most can't stand what echoes back. They'll try to trigger you just to feel seen. They'll throw breadcrumbs to see if you'll chase, but you won't. You've outgrown the game. You've walked away without needing applause. That's real power, not just leaving, but leaving so calmly that they don't even know where they lost you. And now they obsess over what you're thinking, over why you didn't react, over how they went from being the center of your world to being nothing more than a ghost in your rear view. And they'll never admit it, but your silence, it screams louder than anything you could have said. You didn't disappear to teach them a lesson. You disappeared because you finally learned your own. Number 8, don't feed the fire you've escaped. Walking away is only half the battle. The real test is staying gone, not physically, but emotionally, mentally, energetically, because here's what happens after detachment. They come back, sometimes through words, sometimes through silence, sometimes disguised as closure, but it's bait. It always is. Because when you stop reacting, when you stop feeding the fire, the flame starts to fade, and they can feel it. And people who feed off your reactions don't miss you, they miss controlling you. And this is where many fall back into the trap. You feel guilty. You feel tempted to explain. You think maybe you were too harsh, too cold. That's not clarity. That's emotional sabotage. That's the echo of your old patterns trying to reopen a door you finally closed. And if you respond even a little, you reignite a fire you already walked away from, and this time it burns deeper, because you knew better. You don't owe anyone your reaction. You don't owe them access just because they remembered you exist. Not everyone deserves to witness your peace, especially those who help destroy it. And often, the moment you finally detach, the other side senses it, not logically, but energetically. They feel your absence before they even see it. That's when they reach out. That's when they try to pull you back in. And if you're not grounded, you'll confuse manipulation for sincerity. Remember, the fire doesn't burn because it's powerful. It burns because you kept feeding it. Your energy, your emotion, your thoughts. Every bit of it was fuel. But the moment you go silent, the flame has nothing left to consume. That's when they panic, not because they miss you, but because they can't use you. This isn't cruelty, this is consequence. You tried, you explained, you gave chances, but detachment means you've stopped auditioning for people who can't even see your worth. And once you've walked away, the most powerful thing you can do is stay gone. They'll post things designed to trigger you, send messages that feel halfway sincere, tell mutual friends how cold you've become. Don't respond. Don't explain. Don't even think about it too long, because the moment you give it attention, you're back in the game, a game that was rigged the first time around. And the truth is, they don't deserve to know who you're becoming, the person you're turning into. Calm, composed, detached, sharp, is the version of you they never saw coming. Let them wonder, let them talk, let them feel the absence of the energy they once mistreated. You didn't change because you stopped caring. You changed because you stopped bleeding for people who never knew how to heal. Now I want to test something. If this message isn't just relatable, but personal, if you're no longer interested in feeding old flames, but building cold fire inside your own mind, then speak clearly in the comments. Let me know who actually wants a full blueprint for this mindset. Drop this below. We want the 30-day series. If enough of you demand it, I'll release the entire framework. No fluff, no begging, just calm mastery, one day at a time. Number 9, let their guilt echo while you rise. Your silence planted the seed, their guilt watered it. Now let it grow. Without your presence, without your attention, without your return. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge is elevation, rising so far above the chaos that they have to look up just to remember how close they once stood to you. You're not here to fix them. You're not here to chase closure or force understanding. You've detached, and in that detachment, you've created a space where guilt speaks louder than your words ever could. Let them sit in it. Let them replay what they did. Let them choke on the silence that used to be filled with your support, your explanations, your patience. Don't interrupt the lesson. Stay gone. People always notice what you did wrong. Rarely do they admit what they did to lose you. But that's the beauty of silence. It doesn't need their confession. It doesn't need their apology. It just keeps echoing in their mind, louder with every memory, every mistake, every realization. And those echoes, they're not your responsibility anymore. They're their own internal punishment. While they spiral in their own mind, you build, you sharpen, you elevate, you become colder, wiser, stronger, not out of bitterness, but from discipline, from knowing that your energy is too valuable to be wasted on people who only understand your absence, never your presence. Let them wonder why you never came back. Let them fantasize about what they would say if they could talk to you one more time. But don't look back. That's not your story anymore. You've already turned the page. And if you've felt this shift deeply, if every section of this message sounded like something you were meant to hear, then it's time to decide. Do you want this to end here, or do you want to go further? If you're ready to master this mindset for real, one principle at a time, one day at a time, then say it now in the comments. We want the 30-day series. Let that be the signal. I'll be watching. Now, before you go, if this message hit different, if it gave you clarity, power, or peace, then do what strong minds do. I like the video. Subscribe to Stoic Spock. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next. Because the next chapter isn't for the emotional, it's for the untouchable.